We are going live. Real Ranked is back to talk about some Satoshi Kon films. So join us in the live chat. Hello and welcome back to Real Ranked. It's been a while since we've done this, but I'm here with Cole. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Matthew. I'm doing swell. I'm glad it's back. I'm glad to be back. And I'm excited to talk about some fantastic movies today.
Yeah, exactly. No theme for this one, but it's just like something we wanted to talk about. We thought it would be fun. Very short filmography, but some really incredible films. So, yeah.
I was going to ask you, Matthew, what was your first experience with Satoshi Kon?
I think it was Perfect Blue.
Okay. Yeah, I think mine was too. It's one of those directors that I feel like obviously with the Ghibli and kind of that's more accessible to Western audiences here at least. And Perfect Blue is one of those breakouts that I think it's usually on the top 10 like anime films ever because it's inspirational and it broke the barrier on that, especially how dark it gets. And I think there's a lot of similar threads you see that with Satoshi Kon's filmography in general. So yeah, that was my first, but I experienced it kind of later. I think I watched Perfect Blue for the first time like only 5 years ago, but to be honest, that's probably the perfect time. I can't imagine watching it in high school.
That's true.
I wouldn't have picked up on most of that.
I watched it for the first time in 2021.
Wow. Okay. Thanks. So yeah, it's I mean, relatively speaking, it's fresh, but yeah. But otherwise, I've loved exploring this filmography, and obviously passing very, very abruptly, and his filmography maybe isn't as large as a Miyazaki or a Tomo or some of those other contemporaries, but I think there's plenty to be said in what's been done, and in the 4 films and a great series. So
we'll talk about a few of the other talk about some other things that he made besides movies.
Absolutely. Before we get started, I got the Waterloo ginger citrus twist. That's not the theme. I don't know, but I can tell you.
I don't know. We'll find out at the end how it relates to Satoshi Kon.
I actually dreamed it up, and that's why it's here.
Oh,
and the dream came into reality. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, let's. You want to get started with the first and just talk about the first movie?
Yeah. Do you want to do that? We're going chronological. Yeah.
Yeah. Chronological. So.
Okay, that works. If we are, hold on, I gotta check the date on this. I want to be sure because I did want to mention a couple honorable mentions. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the date is before Perfect Blue. Let me double check. No, we're good. Okay, so yeah, Perfect Blue would be first up.
Okay. I'm just gonna leave this on.
Perfect Blue.
And I guess we don't usually have only 2 people. It's just me and one other person on. So. But yeah, I mean, this was like we were saying, my first entry into Satoshi Kon. It was very accessible because it used to be on YouTube.
That's right. Yeah, that was
with subs, and it was really easy to access. But no, I mean, I thought it was just an incredible look at like what fame can, like how fame can affect a person's life. Especially in like an era where right now where parasocial relationships are even more prevalent with the like internet. I think it was like a very unnerving and surreal thriller, and like you really get inside the mind of the main character of Mima, right? Mima is her name, and we get to see her life, as a pop star, just like her day-to-day lifestyle. It's like it's very easy to just like follow this person, and then like suddenly she starts to lose that grip on reality, and like it really makes the audience feel disoriented as well with how it's animated, how it's directed. There's like so many moments where I'm just confused. I'm like, is this real or is this like for the TV show? It's just like that fantasy and reality really blurs together.
I think that's going to be a common thread between all of the films here for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's one of those ones that, yeah, I think comparatively, like he's such a good director in the psychological sense. I think that's such a big key factor to what makes his filmography unique. And I think Perfect Blue takes that to its like ultimate stride.
Yeah.
I think some of the other later entries kind of play up with more of the kind of fantastical. And so this is one where it's for what it is, it's still grounded. And in a lot of ways, it makes it very much tough for in terms of like how it goes and how Mima, sorry, not Mima's experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then obviously, yeah, like the whole look into obsessive fan culture, particularly of like the idol types in Japan, is definitely like something that is a reflection of its time, but also hasn't changed really. And if anyways, in a lot of ways, it's been exacerbated by social media and that stuff. But um, like you were saying, right? So, but
Yeah.
I also think that there's a lot of commentary on kind of the abuse that you take in that industry. Obviously, Mima's trying to climb up in that world from that idol to a TV star, and there's a lot of things that she has to compromise to kind of achieve what she wants. But then also, I think that obviously the psychological layer of this very much stalker is yeah, it does not help in this factor. And yeah, for a lot of reasons, I think visually it's stunning, and I think some of those shots, particularly, we see a lot of parallels to some stuff in Western cinema. Obviously, we could talk about the connections with Black Swan on this.
Uh-huh.
I think some of that's fair. I think some other bits are not as
There are
well.
some visual moments as well that are
For
really.
sure, but it's almost like poetry. Like everything is gonna rhyme eventually, and so I get it, and for me, I take more case in that compared to Black Swan than some of the other cases that people have made over the years.
Mhm.
But obviously, I think regardless, it shows that the film outside of its medium stands above its shoulders on some of the psychological films. It's in the top 10 for me if I was rating psychological thrillers for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
which to some might be a little, might be like, oh wow, really an anime film? And I go, no, man, it's there. It's hitting on all cylinders. Um, yeah, I think some of the kind of there's some things I have qualms with. I think the kind of presentation of these some of these people as like physically disturbed is a little questionable at times, and I think it's a little dated.
Okay.
And so in a lot of ways, like I said, it's a relic of its time, but it's also very much like transcendent. That you kind of look at it as what it is.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said there. I think you go back to it and analyze it for years to come. So
Yeah, like there's still so much that you could get from this movie just watching it now.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, oh, and I guess a big thing I didn't mention too is you find a lot of inspiration he takes from Lynch, and I think it's a big one here. And it's weird how this sort of translates into Mulholland Drive. If you were to watch, like that'd be such an interesting double feature. And there's just a lot of those psychological elements that clearly, I think Kon is more inspired by the Western side of filmmaking than his own, domestic kind of films. But I think we'll talk about that with the next
Okay.
entry. Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So, well, let's just I'll bring up the next one we're talking about. I mean, if you know the release order of his filmography,
Yes.
Millennium Actress, and so
Millennium Actress. Oh, actually, in between here, I did mess up the dates. Um, he wrote on a film called Memories. He wrote a short called Magnetic Rose. that is directed by Katsuhiro Otomo. If you haven't at least seen that short, I think it's worth it. It's like 40 minutes. It's a great look into like that kind of sci-fi. Particularly, it's a good blending of the two, Otomo's writing and Satoshi Kon. So I'd recommend it. I think the whole film's great, but if you're craving for more Kon, I think that's a good place to look at least. So just want to note that before we went on to the next one.
All right. Then Cole, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Malay actress. Funny enough, I think we watched it for the first time together, which was interesting because I think so. This would have been, let's see, yeah, my third from Kon, and so for me, what I take away from it is I think clearly it shows that Kon has a love for cinema. I think the way that it plays with all the kind of dynamics that it in the Japanese cinema world and how that blends together. Obviously, I think what's most impressive about this movie is the framing device in general, like the way that it's blending with her life, with her own career, and the lines are just very much as in a lot of his films blurred,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
And in a lot of ways, I think there's some really impressive editing in the film that works really well in tandem, where you think you're in one scenario and then the next cut you're not, but because it's like a world in a world, it just kind of keeps expanding until you've lost where you originally were. But also,
it's also that thing of being an actress, right? Where like we talked about in The Perfect Blue,
right,
where some things you're like, oh, is this happening? And then you find out it's on a set. And
that's the worst. But it's like, and then it pans out, it's like, damn, it's on a set. And particularly, I think that the way, the way it is able to tell those story beats while also being in like feudal Japan era, and like you could tell where the actual story is happening in between the lines, but it is really happening in between the lines, and it's very well executed. And I think truly in a lot of ways, where Perfect Blue is very much more on the psychological, this is playing a lot more with the medium of film that I think it's clearly a step up for his filmography. I think I like Perfect Blue more. I think there's a little bit more to bite on there than this, but I also think that the way it plays with fans as well. I think the whole framing device of the interviewer being a fan of her, and especially in her later age, and kind of respecting that, but also letting her tell the story, even if it's not true, or if it's blending and blurring with lines, and maybe that has to do more with like old age in general, but I think that's such an interesting, like I said, framing device, and let me be clear, like I love all these films, so it's really hard to rank this, because truly everyone steps above the next in a different way.
Yeah. Like, I mean, obviously, like when you start out with Perfect Blue, it's like, how do you go up from there? And like, I think Satoshi Kon, like his filmmaking, like has, I think there's definitely changes, and I think there's definitely like steps that he takes that are improved. I think,
absolutely.
Even in the animation, I feel like maybe it's like, I think Perfect Blue has more, maybe it has crazy animation, but I think it might be simpler, and then I think sometimes there's more, as we'll get into more of the movies, they get way more stylized, or they have way more detail. I think we kind of see that as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a progression of the industry as a whole by that time. There is something to be said for me personally, where I love that 90s anime aesthetic that I think as it gets along, it gets more technically impressive, but then there's also some compromises there, just kind of going in the digital age. I think by the time you get to Paprika, they're able to do so much more, but it's also some of the lines are cleaner than you expect, and so it's an interesting compromise, especially for stories like this, that you kind of have to keep one-upping the visuals in a way when the imperfections become like less of a prevalent factor, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm not saying the 90s visuals are bad at all.
It's no. Like that's what I'm saying. Like each one of them has their own merit, and the way they approach it, I think clearly is like, I think Kon and their animation directors working on the film understands that, like, you take the medium as it is now and do the most with it. I mean, you look at like Spider-Verse now. I mean, there's a lot of learning and progression that you see in that kind of industry, and I think it very much rolls into that. By Millennium Actress.
Exactly. No, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, there isn't a Satoshi Kon movie that's bad. So
no, there really isn't.
Yeah. But I feel like, you know, there's obviously very clear Ozu influences. I think you can see that in this movie.
Yeah, Ozu for sure. Kurosawa. I think there's a very specific part in that film.
Blood, I think.
Throne of Blood for sure. I there's a scene in there where the temple is burning, which I'm pretty convinced it's Ron, but it's also very similar to a lot of other ones, and it is really interesting. And I think the main character obviously takes a lot of parallels. Talk about Ozu with Setsuko Hara,
that's
her career, and you kind of see that, but you also see that like I don't think Colin's afraid of exploring that her career is going to progress in a different way. So by the end of it, she's like in a space film, and it's like that probably wouldn't happen in the real context of these actresses, but the way that he's able to kind of weave different types of stories, I think lends itself better than maybe what would actually happen in the real world. So yeah. Is it the most accessible? I don't know. I think that's kind of the thing that's interesting with it. I think clearly he does his homework, but but there's a lot of things where, and we'll get to this in Paprika, because I feel like there's a lot more where he feels more inspired by the Western side of filmmaking there, that plays a lot more into that, versus here where I think there's a case to be made that like he does his homework, he definitely represents it well, but if the love is, I think where he puts the love into is the script and kind of the storytelling device. But obviously, like, and this is a hard thing too, because like as much as I've tried to watch enough of Japanese cinema, like there's just a whole world that unless you've been living there for years and watching, of the time in the era, it's going to be hard to register that. So you kind of have to appreciate it on that level. But I do think Kon plays with a little better in Paprika.
Okay. I think, like anyone can watch it no matter how deep your Japanese film history is, but I think you'll get a greater appreciation if you have been more focused on Japanese film.
Absolutely. I felt like I was like pointing at the screen when I was knowing references there, but that was more me just being a film nerd, I think, than anything. I don't think you have to do anything like that. So, oh God, I had to talk about the music. Oh my God. Okay, the music in this I really love. I think I might like it more than Perfect Blues. I think the scores get better as it goes along, actually, personally. But the music in this is fantastic, and I think it plays well with contemporary sounds while working in kind of orchestral of the time, that I think it blends itself really well together. So.
Yeah, no, I think I really enjoyed the music. I mean, but I also agree that I think it does progress really well.
Absolutely.
All right, and we can go on to the next movie. Right?
Yeah. Wait. Hold on.
I want to make sure there's
yes. Yeah, we're good.
All right, then we'll go on to Tokyo Godfathers. And
take it away, Matthew.
I'll take this away because I mean, also this is my final Satoshi Kon movie. This is the one I ended on, and like I was just like, when I finished this movie, I'm like, damn, this man's filmography, he doesn't miss. And so that's also like where we were just like, yeah, let's talk about this on Real Rank. Immediately after I watched the Tokyo Godfathers. Yeah, and I just really enjoyed spending my time with these characters. Like their dynamic together is just so much fun, and there's so many plot points and like happy accidents that happen. Like you never see it coming, but they just like tie together super well. And I love like there's so many random events that happen, but also like how we learn so much about each person, and all of their backstories, and I feel like that adds so much to like really caring about this group of these characters. And I think like just the movie, how it deals with humanity, I think is like really fully realized. And like the heart is just, there's so much heart, but there's also so much absurdity that's happening.
Absolutely.
And like you're never gonna see it coming. You will never expect what happens in this movie, and I love it for that.
Yeah, for basically being his like adaptation of like Three Men and a Baby, it's really great. And it's also, to me, it's like it's fantastic because obviously we're talking previous films here, like just the step up there,
Mhm.
just kind of taking how can I change it up? And I think in his approach to comedy there, I think it's really shows. Yeah, in a lot of ways, this is probably. I mean, Perfect Blue's grounded for sure, but there's obviously the psychological element. This is probably realistically his most grounded film.
Yeah, there's
Um,
not too many like blending of like fantasy or anything like that.
right? Yeah, it takes it pretty straight. Obviously, for the context of a Christmas film, it's very different. Even though there's definitely the humor and the levity, and I think that's kind of what makes it fit into that kind of genre in general. But yeah, obviously, I think like you were mentioning, the dynamics between the three are great. I think yeah, obviously with Jin, Hana, and Miyuki, I think what's really fascinating about them is that they play well with each other, but also like clearly they find the love for each other, but they also hate each other at the same time. And
Yeah, yeah.
I guess aside from Miyuki, because she's kind of the stand-in for a lot of it, but I think the dynamic between Hana and Jin is just fantastic. Um, I think in today's world, it's an interesting kind of conversation you have with Hana's identity,
Mhm.
and I think in the context of the film, like it's very much that Hannah is a cross dresser, but it's
I think
and they talk about this a lot in the new dub that was done by G Kids not that long ago, where like hiring very much a trans actor to play that role
yeah.
kind of fundamentally changes the context for a lot of it, but also like I think that allows it to stand on its own and kind of flesh out that identity even more as years after Khan has passed, right? And I think
Yeah, yeah.
that's something like that is fantastic because that's just something showing how art can evolve over time and people's understanding of it, and what he was able to get away with at the time, you do the most you can, but now I think if Khan were alive and making it today, I feel like
Mhm.
there'd be different context for a lot of this.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and
Mhm.
and
And there's more acceptance for like trans rights right now, compared to 2003. I think that makes a
right,
big difference. Where
right, and that's such a big part of it too. I think they play back and forth with Hana's identity there,
Mhm.
and so in a lot of ways, it's actually why I recommend the dub on this one. But I also recognize that yeah, like I think the sub is still going to get you a better result on some of the other characters, but that's the state of anime dubbing. I don't know what to say other than that. Um, what else to say here? Yeah. When this movie gets like frantic the way it does, it's just fantastic. I think there's so many great like running scenes in the movie that
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just like, and the way it plays off itself, it's just really great. And like I said, I mean, God, this is such a great change of pace from the normal Christmas fare that
yeah, yeah.
I feel
Exactly.
like if you haven't seen it and you're looking for like something else, like you don't want to watch Charlie Brown again and again, like give this a watch. It's
Yeah.
so great. Um, yeah, and
I
yeah,
think.
and I think it doesn't handle like the dark topics other than like I guess the Yakuza stuff. I think for what it is, like it's probably, well, I don't know. Paprika is probably the most accessible in terms of age range, but I think Colin makes films for adults, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
And I think that's a big part of it. Um, but if I were to make a case, I think this might be the one that'd be like, maybe watch it with a family if your
yeah.
family's
This
like
is
cool.
probably the most family friendly Satoshi Kon movie.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's about a family, right? That probably definitely helps.
Exactly, exactly.
When we
Yeah.
get in this in RTFO, I want my family category. I want to see it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I
Oh,
also there's one thing I love about the animation is just like how expressive their faces are. There's just
yes.
yeah, the way that like that's changed, just some of these expressions. There's so much detail on their face.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that like I think yes, and I think they know how to play well with that. But it's also you could also make a criticism that like the three stand out well differently from the rest of the cast, like in terms of the supporting.
Yeah.
That they're kind of caricatures, but also like I think to your point, I think the way that works in the dynamic of the film, it makes so much sense. Yuki's kind of a stand-in, if I'm being honest. Like I think she's a little too pristine to be homeless, and I'm not making like stakes on that. Like I get it. It's not ones and zeros here. Like, but at the same time, it's like, well, okay, she kind of. I think for how like rugged that like for example Jin looks, it feels interesting there.
Yeah.
And but that's like such a small criticism, I think, overall. Oh man, I need to rewatch this one. I love this one, seriously.
I'm gonna have to watch it again in December.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm so excited. All right. You know what you also need to watch, Matthew?
The next
our next entry. Paranoia Agent is fantastic series if you haven't seen it. In a lot of ways, I think the way that Paranoia Agent works is that it's kind of Khan's delivery for a lot of short films, almost like hour-long specials, because the crux of the framing device is very much the first two episodes, and you kind of get wrapped into that. But then I think it kind of just delves into the paranoia in the city and how that kind of reflects all the different parts of that city, and particularly as oh god, I don't want to call him Little Buster. I have to remember this guy's name. Little Slugger. My bad. Little Slugger being like the whole framing device of like this panic and how that kind of in each episode then goes into what that means for the different parts of that world is very interesting. And obviously, if you've seen any of the other films, there's definitely things you can take from. I think there's a case that there's an episode that's like Perfect Blue. There's an episode that's like Millennium Actress. And so in a lot of ways, it's like I said, it's like Khan's attempt to explore. I think my favorite, if I'm picking a favorite episode in that series, there's a fantastic one about and it gets very meta with the way animation works and the overworking of that industry. And it blurs the line, the fourth wall, probably the most that he's ever done. That you could just watch that on its own and you would take so much away from it. But where it faults is probably in the end for me personally. Like I said, once you start getting into it, it's definitely a matter of like, oh, what happened to the plot? Like, what's going on? And you get some very, very small threads, but then you also realize that they're kind of false leads. And they're just, like I said, it's about the paranoia, right? And so by the end of it, it goes very fantastical, very quick. And in a lot of ways, it's like a screeching halt. But I guess it's like a speed up at the end, and they're like, oh God, it's over. But but I will say is that there's a lot of things in this series that are like explored that get completely perfectly rolled over into Paprika. So in a lot of ways, if you love Paprika, this is probably more of your thing. If you're more of a Perfect Blue person, it might be a little tougher. If you're more a Millennium Actress person, it's a little tougher. But regardless, I think it's one of those things where we take the level of series versus films to be this different kind of understanding of what that means. And but for here, it feels like it's working on all cylinders. I don't believe he directed all the episodes. I believe he wrote all of them. So it's one of those cases. But like, it fits very much into the style coming off of Tokyo Godfathers, that it doesn't feel foreign to that kind of world that he's been working in. So yeah, not a very accessible show right now, I don't think. I mean, you can find it, but I'd recommend finding a way to watch it. It's definitely up there for me.
Maybe Crunchyroll. I don't know.
I'd have to look on Just Watch to figure out, but I'm sure. Sub is probably better on this one, by the way, if you're looking for that. But the dub is fine. So, but yeah. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Paranoia Agent. Matthew hasn't seen it, so I'm gonna bully him to watch it eventually.
There's too
But
many shows for me to watch, but I want to watch it. I am interested.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. And like I said, it's one of those shows that I feel like you can pick up and put down because the way once you get past like the first couple episodes, you can pick up and put down because it's very much in that world. Music in this is fantastic. It might be my favorite.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of cases to make for the next one, but I do think that the music in this, like I said, a lot of that is the testing ground before into Paprika, and I
they
think
have the same composer.
Yes, and that's such a big part of it because there's a lot of exploration of the digital space there with the orchestral level. And God, the opening scene, the opening theme for Paranoid Agent is just like it hits you like a drum, and it's so great that it gets me in every time. I'm like, all right, am I in? Am I out? And then I hear it, and I'm like, I'm in, baby, let's go. So, but yeah, Paranoid Agent. So
awesome. All right, then we will go into the final movie, Paprika.
I talked a while here, Matthew. You want to take it away here?
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, Paprika. It's another one of Satoshi Kon's. Just I think for me, this was the most confusing story. I think where he's blending, the fantasy reality stuff, but I just think the story is just so creative and so surreal. It's filled with so many unique ideas, and I think I should have watched it again because just because it's the most confusing one to me, but I didn't. But yeah, I will watch it again eventually. It's just like the animation is so striking. It's just like even if I don't understand something, I'm just enamored by the screen. There's always something to look at that's gorgeous, and
in a lot of ways, it makes it accessible in a funny way. It's like it's so visually stunning and absurd that like you're still gonna take that away from it no matter what. And like you were saying, and it's so funny to me that I think this is probably, I mean, maybe Perfect Blue is probably more popular in certain crowds, but I think this is the one that has the most recognition. And so in a lot of ways, it's on the visual level, it's hitting on all cylinders. That like you're gonna get something out of it, man. I mean, no matter what, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously, I think Susumu's Hirasawa's score, I think it's personally my favorite Satoshi Kon score, and I think it just perfectly complements everything in the movie. I haven't listened to Paranoia Agent, so I can't say about that, but say anything.
I will say, in the States, anyways, it's not Paranoia Agent score isn't accessible, but Paprika's is. So you have to kind of appreciate that. Unfortunately, that's the way sometimes these things go. But yeah.
Like I want to talk about the story, but it's so.
I mean, I could talk about the story because I saw it recently, and
you go for it.
Because okay, so to me, like I love the framing device here too as well. I think the way of doing the dreams, not as on the psychological level. Like we get back to psychological here, right? It's about exploring the memories there and kind of dealing with trauma in that way, and then obviously as the person is getting in there in blending their dreams with everybody else's that is a part of the network, it becomes like I said, it becomes this line where it's so hard to tell, and sometimes it's hard to follow. I think that is a part of it. But then you also pick up on some fantastic editing that happens in results, going from one dream world to the next, falling down, and then all of a sudden you fall into the water and you're a mermaid, and then it's like, what the hell just happened? And the entire frog parade is just like outstanding in a way that like you feel like it's so rooted in that culture, but also just like there's so much that like it's so much like I can't imagine dreaming of half of that stuff. And they really put the dream level of reality, kind of doing whatever you can do, into full force here. I don't think they take any creative expenses because you have
The
to,
parade
right? You have
thing,
to,
like the parade scene, really definitely stands out. It's just like that is so creative, you know.
yeah, I think there's some elements of particularly the one scene where the hand goes up and then through her chest. And it's almost like Cronenberg-esque, where it kind of throws me off. And I was like, oh my god, but it's not graphic enough because because of the dream reality. Like you understand that she's harmed, but she's not really harmed. And then when it breaks through and it's like, oh, it's like a seam. It's something fantastic there that you see the inspirations, especially in other Western filmmaking there. I got to give the big shout out. First time seeing the Roman holiday reference. I think that's fantastic. You might need to pick up on that again, Matthew, because there's literally a shot for shot thing there. I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
I loved it.
Okay. I'll have to, when I rewatch it, I'll pay attention to that.
You'll see it and you go, oh my god, I know that. It's literally supposed to be Gregory Peck, and you pick up on that. And yeah, I think there's like some James Bond inspired stuff. I think Kon has a love for 60s, 70s, and I guess a little bit of 50s cinema there in the Western side that clearly shows. And with our lead detective, our supporting detective character, right, and his fascination with that world, and it blurs all together, but also blurring with our villains. And obviously the whole persona of Paprika is fantastic as well, because I think the way that they kind of address it at the top, they go, okay, they're not like trying to really confuse you, but they go so quick in the story that it could be a little confusing, I think. And I'm curious, I'd be curious on a rewatch how that lends to itself, but I can tell you I picked up on it pretty fast, and I feel like there's a lot to be said. Yeah, man, it's really great. It's also like only an hour and a half. I think that's the craziest thing here.
Yeah, it is short.
It is. I mean, I think a lot of his films are short.
Yeah.
Let me check here.
Perfect Blue is 81.
81. Yeah, Paprika was 90 minutes exactly. So, yeah. So we're all working in the 90-ish range.
Yeah, they're all short. So if anyone wants to check out Satoshi Kon's filmography, like call in the live chat who hasn't seen a single one. They're short movies, so I recommend. Oh, we both recommend you check them out.
Of course. Do you have anything else to add here before we?
No, I think you said everything that could be said.
Yeah. Speaking of shorts, if you want a good starting point to understand in like a minute or less, Good Morning is a place to start. This hold on, I gotta get the name right. But this is a part of a short series, Anikura, done in 2007 that took a lot of famous Japanese anime directors of the time, and now it kind of lives as this final kind of piece of work that he was able to work on in full, in between Paprika and then his next project which never kind of came to fruition, unfortunately. But it's fantastic filmmaking for under a minute. I don't think anybody could do it better than that, and I think he's a perfect example.
Exactly, and it's another one of Satoshi Kon's where he blends reality.
Oh my god, absolutely, and it's like it can't end. Like it never. It's always gonna be that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You saw this for the first time today, though, Matt.
I did watch this today. Yes.
Okay.
It's fantastic. It's less than a minute. Like, go and watch this right now.
Yes, absolutely. It should be on YouTube. Good morning.
Yeah, I watched it on YouTube.
But yeah.
Colin does like short movies.
Yeah, Colin, there you go. You can log in for your letterbox and get some extra cred there. So there you go. But yeah, should we rank these?
Yeah, okay. Well, I will go ahead and bring up our list on Letterboxd, and right now it's just ordered in by release date, but we'll have to make some compromises. We'll see. I don't know.
Whoa, hey. Listen, I'm like I said, like I think we said this at the top. Like truly, I can make a case for one going to the other depending on my time of year and how I feel. So I'm not afraid to make compromises here, because truly when their compromises aren't that much compromising. It's okay.
Yeah.
I
At
will
least
start.
for
I
me,
will
these
start.
movies are all 4.5 stars and high or higher. So yeah,
Ooh, okay,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I think I have some problems on certain levels. That they wouldn't get, some of them wouldn't get that high.
Hmm.
And I think I'll start by with Paranoid Agent because you're the only one that can't.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it at the bottom. I think despite everything, like I said, it has some of my favorite elements of Khan's work. But as a whole, and you're comparing it to the way that these films work in tandem with each other, I think Paranoid Agent has its flaws, but it's also a series. So to some, that might be more of what you're looking for. Um, but it is what it is. It's a Satoshi Kon anime series, and it definitely works in that way. But also, I would have loved to see another kind of go at it because I think there's some ways that we could simplify some of it for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but truly, it's still fantastic. So, all right, Matthew. What do you think's at number 4? Because I am curious now.
I would. I honestly feel like it could change when I rewatch it, but right
Okay.
now I do have Paprika as my number 4.
Whoa. Okay. Shit. Damn. Let me double check my list now. I think I was nicer on it.
And
Oh
no, like I
man.
love the movie. It has nothing to
I
do with
know. I know.
that. It's
I
all
think
it's
our I
all
think
good.
our yeah, I think our points brought up there today though have made a case for it to be there. Um
Mhm.
because yeah, I think the way it is confusing, and that's kind of the point. And not necessarily that film has to be accessible in that way to be great. But I think it lends itself better when it is.
Mhm. Mhm.
Oh man, that's tough. It's also a little bit of an interesting finale. I feel like
Yeah. No, I
it and I think I read in interviews here where Khan was working through it, kind of like a Miyazaki approach until the very end, and so I think it shows a little bit. Unfortunately, the way these things happen, um, that I'm okay with it there. I think I had it at 3, but I think our conversation alludes it to be at 4 here.
okay.
I think some people will be very mad about this though, but that's okay. Like
I
I
we
said,
we had our we explained our reasons.
I
It's
think so. I think so too, man. So, uh, okay. So if Paprika is a 4, this is where I feel like we're gonna disagree because if Paprika is at 4, I'm actually putting Millennium Actress at 3, but I don't think you're gonna agree with me on that one.
well, that's also where I have Millennium Actors. I
Oh
put
shit.
Millennium Actors at 3.
Okay. Damn. Okay.
All right.
Um. Yeah. I think we said our piece on that one.
Mhm.
I think it's a great follow up to Perfect Blue. It does everything that does, but also takes a more historical and cinematic approach to it. That
Yeah.
it's a great step up, but also maybe it doesn't hit the highs that Perfect Blue does.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I agree with that. Mhm.
um, and it is slightly confusing, I think, at times. And
Yeah,
I
there's
think
sometimes
that
that perception of reality.
right, and I don't know. Maybe I need to rewatch on it. I think I need to rewatch on all these, and then I would never be able to rank any of them. So,
This, on a different day, this could change.
so Millennium Actress of 3, then yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Well, that was easy. We didn't have to fight about it.
No, I guess not. I was expecting a fight. That's so funny. Okay. Well,
Well,
so I you go. Where do you think 2
I'll
is?
go.
What do
Well, yeah, I'll go Tokyo Fathers for 2.
I'm with you on that.
I think for it is really tough to beat Perfect Blue for me, but Tokyo Godfathers, I just really, even though it is under Perfect Blue, I still really love that just like family aspect of the movie, the whole like happy accidents type thing, miracles. I really like.
Yeah, I agree. Am I slightly championing this because it's different than the others a little bit? I do think that like what it the way that Khan is able to pivot, like I mentioned earlier, I think, and the way he's still able to do it effectively in a very unique environment at like a Christmas
Mhm.
time thing. Um, for me, that's what kind of makes it stand out.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it's still grounded. And if I'm not mistaken, I feel like I have to double check. I think other than Paranoia Agent, they're all pretty much based on literary works.
Oh.
So it's kind of interesting that we could talk about Paprika, because Paprika was an inspiration for a lot of elements in Perfect Blue, the Paprika, the book, for everything going forward that it led to the way it is. But that being said, I think Tokyo Godfathers has the better story there. I think that it has more time to play with characters and the dynamics there. That, for me personally, I feel like I love non-narrative stuff. I like the way that these films break the convention. But when the narrative is really strong, like Godfathers, I think you really can't ignore it. So yeah, I'm happy with it at 2 there. Seriously.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah.
But Perfect Blue, number 1. It's still there.
It is. Yeah. I mean,
is it a case of like you can't top your first film and everything else is no, because but truly, like I feel like, yeah, it's we're picking hairs here. Like it's everything is fantastic on this list, but
yes. Yeah.
Perfect Blue has the story, has the psychological elements, has all these things that I love about Kon and his filmography, that while also being socially relevant. I think if we're looking on a grand scale here, Perfect Blue has a lot to say. That if we go down the list, that some of these have a lot of visually going on, but not necessarily as much to say. So and it's a balancing act, right? But I think that Perfect Blue is able to hit its marks on a lot of damn levels. That it's hard to ignore. It's hard to ignore it.
And we talked a lot about Perfect Blue already, but but yeah, it is just, even it is his first movie, so like there's also a lot of respect there. But I mean, it is just like everything is seamless.
Well, and it's his first directorial debut. I mean, clearly, I think it shows that he had been in the industry long enough to flesh out these things. And you kind of hear the stories about the way that he does storyboarding later on in his career, that like clearly as a filmmaker he's becoming more advanced. But sometimes you work your ass off on one project and you can't necessarily hit that again and again, but you're trying to change it up, right? And I think clearly as a directorial debut, like he adapts this fantastically in a way that that it's really hard to beat. And I think there's a reason why it's on these top 10 anime lists of all time in terms of films, because if you're comparing this to Ghibli, it's nothing like it. If you're comparing this to anything else in the anime sector, it's not shonen like. It's not in a lot of ways there's a reason why people have taken inspiration from it, and it's something that I need to now. I feel like I need to watch it right now. Goddamn.
Yeah, I was like, what if I just rewatch Perfect Blue and then it's not on YouTube anymore.
Man, yeah, I know, that's okay. We'll find a way. But yeah, so man. Okay, dang, no fight here, Matthew. I respect it. I respect it.
No fight, but we talked a lot about Satoshi Kon.
That being said, if I'm being honest, like Perfect Blue, then the 3 are tied, and then Paranoia Agent. Like I think each of them have their own merits, and like I said, on rewatch, I'm sure I'd feel different on each one of them.
I guess no. For me, I feel like I got more out of Tokyo Godfathers, but then I would probably say Millennium Actress and Paprika are super close.
Fair.
But,
in my
no
ranking,
bad movie in his filmography, so
no, there really isn't. No, there really isn't. and like we said, it's the shortness of his filmography is one of those things where it's you wish to see that he could have done more, but also that like I said, people keep coming back to these movies, and clearly it shows that like he's making something timeless there, that that
He has a lasting
lives.
legacy even after his death.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you're interested in learning about him more, I'd recommend the documentary The Illusionist. That I think it was released a couple years ago, 2017, 2018.
Okay.
Fantastic look into his work and his and where he comes from. I think, yeah, I mean, I can't say these are comparable, but like I think the way that Katsuhiro Otomo acts as a mentor to him, that you could watch a lot of his films too and get similar things from him. So hopefully you watch these, and that's a ground. It's a stepstone to even greater stuff or more stuff, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, short one here today, Matthew.
Yeah, exactly. You know, two of us just talking about director we love, and
We like movies.
so
Oh man,
you know, I didn't think there would be too many people in the live chat, but Colin, it's great to see you.
absolutely.
And if anyone's watching on the playback, you know, let us know what your thoughts are on Satoshi Kon if you want.
Yeah, I'd be curious if anybody has other anime director suggestions going forward. I know we talked about Hosoda at one point, and obviously Shinkai is very popular with
Yeah.
your next stuff. We talked about doing this as a double bill with another director, but I'm happy the way we've done it because it's like I said, there's nobody like Khan.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Even his
He has
contemporary.
such a distinct style.
Right, exactly. That like, yeah, I'm glad we gave him his time and day. So thanks, Colin. We appreciate you. So, all right.
All right. Well, then I think that's it from Cole and I. But
Yeah, I was gonna say, do we have anything coming up here?
the next Real Ranked is
Ooh.
going to be in October. And
oh, geez. I wonder what that could be, Matthew.
and we're going to be ranking A24 horror movies.
Woo. Nice.
Everything from whatever their first A24 horror movie is, probably like Under the Skin or something.
Oh, yeah, that probably is because it was 2013, right? Yeah, and then
until up to Talk to Me.
Talk to Me, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So
yeah, hopefully we'll see some of you guys in the live chat there. And I guess that's it.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.